Welcome back to Immersion Church. I'm Pastor Chris Soloc. We have been talking about becoming love for the last couple of weeks, and today we are talking about sacrificial love. The need for sacrificial love in relationship to God, in relationship to the way we exist. That if we expect other people to encounter other people, to meet other people, to be useful in other people's crises, we first have to build that intimacy with God. We've talked about that over the last couple of weeks, but then that we have to put those people's needs, as God directs. And I do put that in front of there. There is that boundary there. There is that level of discernment. I speak to the fact that we have people that reach out for deliverance all the time. And we even had a gentleman back in November, actually October, end of October, early November, reach out for deliverance. And we gave him a very specific criteria as to how we deliverance, how do we do deliverance, where we do deliverance, why we do deliverance in a spiritually controlled environment. For some of you who understand the way we do deliverance and those kinds of things. And so, and that has a 100%, we have a 100% set free record since doing it that way, since God, and guess who directed us? God did, right? Spiritually controlled environments. Doesn't mean that God can't do things outside of a spiritually controlled environment. What we have found, what Jesus has continually spoken to, is the fact that it is so much more peaceful, so much more gentle, so much easier for him to operate in that environment as opposed to just anywhere. And this one person that was reaching out was really trying to set a trap. And Jesus from the very beginning said, they're not going to come. You're not even gonna have to worry about this person showing up. They only want you to come into their house, which there's a portal there, it's infested. This person talks to these entities. They actually don't want to be separated from these entities. They say they do, but they really don't. And sure enough, Mark and I both talked to this individual. We set up a time. They didn't show up. And they reached out. We tried to set it up again and again and again. And over and over and over again, I would get weird voicemails at like 3 a.m. You need to come over to my apartment. You need to come over and deliver me here. You need to come now, blah, 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 blah. And to the point of where Jesus was like, okay, that's enough. And you build the boundary. So I speak to the fact that there is a discernment, there is an awareness of where we position ourselves. And again, this comes back to that intimacy, not doing for God, but doing with God. And there are times when he's like, they're not serious. They're not serious about deliverance. Like, this isn't going to produce anything. You just need to step back. Okay. Now that's rare. I'm going to be honest, that is rare. But it does happen, and it's the sensitivity to the Spirit. And again, his plan, his obedience, it's no skin off my nose, because it's about what he wants to do. It's not my ministry, it's his ministry. If he says it's a no-go, it's a no-go, and I'm going to move on. If he's going to tell me, hey, it's a no-go, but put a pin in it, then I'm going to say, okay, we're going to revisit that at some point. He speaks all of these things, and I think it's very important for us that it requires us being flexible, it requires us being open, and it requires us being sacrificial. It's not always about my family. It's not always about me. My wife will speak to the fact that I've got many, many stories where people have asked me to do things, and it's like, I don't know if I've got the energy. And Jesus will literally be like, will you do it for me? Oh, it's cheating. It's cheating when he says that. Will you do it for me? Of course I will do it for you. Well, then give me the energy, give me the strength, give me the peace, give me the love to do it. Guess what? He does. As I give sacrificially, so does the Lord. However you want to think of that, he always gives us the ability to do the thing that he's asking us to do. Anybody who's being spiritually led, you may be tired, you may be pushed, you may be pushing your threshold, but you're never in burnout. You're not in burnout. I've been to the point of where my flesh is burned out and I'm more alive in the spirit than I've ever been. Are you okay? I'm amazing, And you're like, why? Because I pushed the threshold of flesh and I'm completely right now, there is no resistance in the flesh. The flesh is so exhausted that it's just me and Jesus in the spirit right now. It was like, that was a surprise. I'll never forget the very first time I experienced that, because it was like, oh, wow. Because I was like, man, I'm going to burn out. Jesus is like, you can't burn out if you are remaining in me. I will sustain you. I am the source of all life. I will give you the life to continue on. The word promises this. Yet so often we are doing it our way. We are guessing. We have said no. And that lack of intimacy as we try to be kingdom-minded, kingdom productive, that if we're doing things out of our own strength, our own plan, what we think God would do, boy, does it just get us into trouble. It gets us into trouble. It gets us a result that wonky results, puts us in strange situations. People have come back to me like, thinking they're giving a testimony. I've heard it from different pastors, different ministries, and I'm going, why does this sound so strange? And he goes, because it was just them shooting by the hip, playing Christian cowboy, being somewhere I didn't ask them to go, and doing something I didn't ask them to do. Oh. It just even the way they're talking, the way it's landing, just, sounds very strange. Very strange compared to the way that you work with us, but you can work different ways with different people. No, he's like, but I didn't tell them to do it. And people would get hurt. People would get, there was some very negative results that would come out of some of these situations. We did a deliverance one time in Pahrump for a good friend of ours. And I remember Mark and myself and Pinay going, and this lady, her husband, I asked about her husband because her husband refused to be in the house. He had worked with, I wouldn't even call it a ministry, but a group of people that believed they were doing deliverance. And the reason I say that is because specifically of this man and the way Jesus described him, her husband had a limp from an interaction with the demonic that had left him physically scarred. And I was like, that's really interesting. I said, the man won't stay in the house for the deliverance. Nope, my husband will have no part in deliverance ever again. And I go, Jesus, can you it's an hour drive to Pahrump. I was asking him on my way out, and he's like 7 sons of Sceva. He was invoking my name, but he didn't have the intimacy, nor the authorization, nor the anointing to be doing that. There was a lack of intimacy. And so he was somewhere he should not have been. And he got hurt. To the point of where he was very fearful of us being there. As soon as we knocked on the door, he literally boom. We brushed shoulders. I'm coming in as he's going out. And our friend was delivered, and it was very peaceful. There were entities that needed to go, but God is in control. There is no one that can overcome him if he authorizes something to happen. No one can overcome the will of God. The enemy tries to delay it, but you can't overcome it. You cannot overcome him. So I speak to this, and the reason I share all this is because that reality of doing with God requires sacrificial living, because he will require you to be places for people that sometimes interrupt the rest of your existence. Well, Jesus, but this is the big T-ball championship today. Yeah, Chris, she's got 5 demons. They need to come out. This is the time. Not because Chris is saying so, because he's instructing so. I want you to think about that. What's more important in that situation, the person in crisis? See, and it's the perspective of God. This is the thing. Man has its perspective. Well, we're never going to get this T-ball game back. Yes, that is true. That is very true, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful. Yet, the heart of God, the heart of God, that there are times when it's not convenient for our existence, yet God requires us to step in. Why? Because he needs us. He's purposed us for that, and that he's prepared us to be open to him in such a way that he could use us in that manner for those who are in desperate need of help. This is again to express the true love of God. John 15:13, no one has a greater love than this, that someone would lay down his life for his friends. Or the T-ball game. Jesus is speaking to the fact that he's not just talking about dying, he's talking about sacrificing here. It's not just a matter of death, it's a matter of sacrifice. That there is no greater love than this, that someone would lay down his life and sacrifice for his friends. Right? That it's sacrificial love. And you're not doing it because you think you should, you're doing it because you've been instructed to do it. It has to do with the will and the perfect plan of God for each and every one of our lives, and the love of God manifesting in the earth. Mark 10:43-45 says this, but it must not be like that among you. On the contrary, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must be slave to all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many. My first point this morning is Jesus defines the highest form of love as sacrifice. Jesus measures love by what someone is willing to lose. And here's the reality. Yes, the person benefits. There's people that will benefit from it, but who are you really sacrificing for? I'm going to go back to that moment where I really didn't want to, and Jesus is like, would you do it for me? Come on, man, that's cheating. But the truth of the matter is, it's always been about Jesus. The reason that you've been positioned that way is because of your relationship with him, the intimacy you've built with him. It was always about his will. I've said this many, many times before. If you go back, if you found me 13 years ago and told me that this is where I was going to be today, I would have told you were nuts. Because that person was serving himself, not living a life focused on serving, most importantly, Jesus, but also others. I can't imagine not living a life where we get to serve others, because God has given me so much out of that. And that I've come to this place where I love serving others. Is it always easy? No. Is it always hard? No. Does it take a lot? Always. Always. Your flesh doesn't like it. I don't care who you are. Your flesh is going to resist it on some level. That's why it's so important that we deny ourselves, pick up our cross, and follow him. John 10:16-18 says this, but I have other sheep that are not of this fold, and I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice. Then there will be one flock and one shepherd. This is why the Father loves me, because I am laying down my life so I may take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down on my own. I have the right to lay it down, and I have the right to take it back up again. I have received this command from my Father. I want to speak to this because Jesus is speaking to his free will and his choice out of his love for the Father and his love for us. He did the Father's will. So is it with us. So is it with us. You and I have a choice to do it for God. It's not about us. To do it for God and to do it for others as he directs. And it's not about, oh, Chris, what a great job you did. Oh, Chris, no, on to the next. This is an expectation. This is how we function. This is normal to us. We don't throw parades for this kind of thing. It's not about self-gratification. It's about watching God restore people, heal people, transform people. The way that you and we were affected by him. And to be used in that capacity to bring about the Father's will. My second point, the cross is the ultimate revelation of love. And the cross is not merely redemption, it is revelation. Deny yourself, pick up your cross, follow him. There are so many of us that are trying to resist spiritual death. But what if I do this for God? Well, he'll let me keep this. I love the negotiating. It's like you don't want to negotiate. Don't keep any part of your old self. At least don't listen to it. Don't function through it. Don't listen to it. No, focus on the Lord. The revelation of the cross, the revelation of sacrifice for that of the needs of others is to demonstrate what it means to become the love of God for the world around us. That's why Jesus says, deny yourself, pick up your cross, follow me. And if you go all the way down to Luke 9, he talks about that some of us are going to walk in the kingdom of heaven before we taste death. That I love, because that's the reality of Christ, is that for those who are willing to come all in, you're going to walk in the kingdom of heaven before you taste death. Luke 9, 21 through 25. This is going to sound familiar, but he strictly warned and instructed them to tell this to no one, saying, the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, chief priests, scribes, and be killed and be raised on the third day. Then he said to them all, if anyone wants to come with me, he must deny himself, take up his cross daily, and follow me. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life, did you hear that? But whoever loses his life because of me will save it. What is it for a man benefited if he gains the whole world, yet loses or forfeits himself? I think there's some of us that really struggle to even believe this statement. But I can tell you that it's real. I can tell you that it is true. And that this isn't for pastors. This isn't for anointed evangelists. This is for each and every one of us. But it's a choice. It's a choice. Choose this day whom you will serve. It goes right back to the statement that take up your cross daily. Daily. The cross is not just an emblem of death, it's an emblem of sacrifice. He sacrificed himself. He said, pick up your cross daily. Pick up your action of sacrifice. Deny yourself, live sacrificially, and follow me. That's what he's saying. You know, there's so many stories that we have throughout the New Testament of people encountering Jesus. And the reality is that they want the benefit of relationship with him, but they don't want anything to do with him. They want to offer their services. They want to partner with him. But none of them want to submit themselves to him. They don't want to take part in what's being done. No, I can advise you. I can influence you. No, it was the fisherman. He said, drop your nets and follow me. Do you understand what those guys gave up? They gave up their jobs. They gave up their vocations. They gave up their family businesses. We don't even know. The scripture doesn't even talk about, what did the families go through? right? And we know they didn't starve. We know that they didn't starve. So God, Jesus, in the ministry provided for them. Were they wealthy? No. They weren't. What were they? Obedient. They were sacrificial. And they were following Jesus. And it took them all the way to their deaths. All of them but John. And he died in exile. Most of them, it led them all to very, very violent deaths and martyrdom. All for him. They did that for us. Do you understand? They did it for him, but they also did it for us. And that ministry over thousands of years has been built upon their shoulders, starting with Christ, then the early disciples, and then the church from there. We should be forever grateful of their sacrifice. But it was their love for Jesus and their love for others that led them to that place. Great men and women of God, great men and women of faith, great men and women of sacrifice, great men and women of love. My third and final point, disciples are called into the same pattern of love. Jesus invites believers to participate in the cruciform love. It's that place of sacrifice. Not all of us are going to die a death of martyrdom. Doesn't mean that we weren't called to die daily to the self out of what God was asking us to do. I have given up so many plans, so many desires that I had for this life, for a better one that God had dreamt for me. But I know that to be true because I've experienced his love and I know how much he loves me. I could never have done that without knowing how much he loved me. It was his love that transformed me. It was his love that was the evidence to say there is more, there is something greater, and he wants me to be a part of it. I didn't ask to be a part of it. He communicated very early on that he wanted to do with me and that he wanted my existence to be intertwined with his existence for the rest of eternity. There's a vastness in that love that changes you, that you can't be the same when you've encountered it in a relational way. And that's where God is calling each and every one of us. Because when we go to that place and we put it on the line for him and he proves himself over and over and over and over again to us, that we become not just believing and faith-filled, but we understand that nothing can overcome his will. And that the safest place for us is in his hands, wherever he would send us, to whoever he would have us minister to, lay hands upon, pray for, give to, make a meal for, wherever he wants us, that is where we should desire to be. Until next week, be blessed.